Chief Aladu Obe, the chairman of the AREWA Joint Committee, Professor Angu Abdullahi, Alaji Babakida Aliyu, Ambassador Ibrahim Sule, Barrister Ibrahim Zara, Alaji Aliku Muhammad, His Excellency the Vice President Mohammed Namadi Sango, Alaji Bello Mufi. I'd like to thank you very much for having me here today. Also, I'd like to recognize the panel that gracefully put this occasion together. Alaji Murim Jafaru, whoever, Senator Ibrahim, CON, Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed, Professor Binta Abdul Karim, Baba Yola Tungu, Aja Sandatu San, those here present, the press present, well-meaning Nigerians here present today. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Latifu Kolawale Abiola, popularly known as Kola. I'm by the special grace of Allah, the presidential candidate of our party, the People's Redemption Party. I wish to express my profound gratitude for the invitation to address this August gathering of eminent Nigerians as the nation sets to chart a way forward in its development as a democratic nation amidst serious economic situations, political and security challenges. The organizers and sponsors of this event together represent critical interest groups in the affairs of the Nigerian political economy. That the different groups will be concerned about the quality of political office holders who will come power to proceed over the affairs of this country is quite understandable. Equally important is the need to interrogate the agenda that the political parties and politicians will bring with them to office. Democracy and forms good governance is a dynamic process, not simply an event in which citizens periodically turn out to vote specific parties and individuals to office for specific terms of office. Going forward, I want to establish up front that I'm here speaking to you not as an outsider. I am home in the north. I spent many holidays in Kano as a child. I did my National Youth Service Corps in Zaire and choose to stay on when I finished. I have lived and worked throughout the north. I know the farming communities of Dakar, Angonkola local government in Taraba State, and Lafayette Kwara State intimately. I must also say at the onset that any regional interest group concerned about the future trajectory of political administration in Nigeria has to foremost situate its concerns in and can only be meaningful within the context of the broader national agenda. It is our cardinal belief in the People's Redemption Party and one we hold very dearly that such a Nigeria is in the collective and individual best interest of all its citizens. Therefore, in addressing our concerns today, I will situate my address as well as discussions that will follow on certain fundamental principles. The People's Redemption Party, Architect Haruna Zego, our Vice President, fellow candidate, and I, Latifu Kolawale Abiola, call you to this grand design for Nigeria. That Nigeria is a nation that has been brought into existence by God through the hands of history to fulfill a grand plan for our people and serve as a beacon of hope for the Black race. And I repeat once more, Nigeria is a nation that has been brought into existence by God through the hands of history to fulfill a grand plan for people and serve as a beacon of hope for the Black race. Let no one deserve you that Nigeria is not worthy of true nationhood, love, and sacrifice because of our history. After all, the rest of Africa and the Americans had to endure colonial rule as we did, often times for longer and in even more dehumanizing conditions. The British, for one, had to endure 400 years of colonial rule at the hands of the Romans. And in the process, tribes and kingdoms were clubbed together to form a country. In our case, that country is Nigeria. A legitimate construct, and every bit as much a creation of God as any other country. I am certain to why our country exists, and this is the reason why I am equally convinced that we must all be willing to toil, sweat, and sacrifice for this country. This is my respected compatriots. We must believe in our hearts and teach our children. I do not speak about sacrifice in the abstract. My family knows what it means to sacrifice for this nation and has had to make that ultimate sacrifice for our beloved Nigeria. And I want to identify only 3 such principles which my party, the People's Democratic Party, consider as fundamental principles of any political engagement in Nigeria. The first of such principles I alluded to is national interest and direct unequivocal belief in Nigeria as a national entity. The second principle arises from the first, is that our programs must be guided by the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And third, incorporating the previous 2, is that our programs will aim to fully deliver the potential dividends of democracy to especially the youth and hardworking Nigerians. This is not to sugarcoat our circumstances. There are significant issues across the length and breadth of this great land. We have experienced many of them ourselves and studied them extensively. We have worked hard to identify the roots, causes of all, so as to start to chart a solution. I believe that our campaign manifesto will address the major problems. My vision is to lay a foundation for making Nigeria a top 10 economy in 20 years. My mission is to govern with the people to achieve human capital development, security and national cohesion, and to serve as a bridge between generations. On the back of this, we have laid out a carefully thought-through plan of action based on a 3-point agenda. The people, and the people. Our 3 P's, as we call them, are people's safety and security, people's well-being, and people's prosperity. Collectively, it's all about creating jobs and creating pride in our country. We have focused on these 3 interrelated agenda points with very clear objectives. People's safety and security, protecting Nigeria and our people, and ensuring proper governance and the rule of law in our affairs. People's well-being, ensuring life's sustaining necessities through strong social infrastructure, and thereby mobilizing the people to action by way of igniting their sense of patriotism and love of country. 3, people's prosperity, enhancing the ease of doing business through robust economic infrastructure, capable talent, economic reforms, and business initiatives, and positioning of Nigeria as a high productivity country. With the security, in the interaction template that you shared with us as guide for the discussions that shall follow. I noticed your serious concern on the problem of security in the various strata, as well as the issue of rebuilding security, law and order, and governance institutions. Let me say that no matter how lofty my programs are, no matter how lofty our manifesto is at PRP and the program we have in mind, without security, our kids will never be able to go to school, for fear of being kidnapped. Our farmers will never be able to go to farm, for fear of being kidnapped. So, security is the base and foundation for both Nigeria and northern Nigeria. There is no base for any doubt that no matter how laudable and economic blueprint you want to pursue, there is no way you can make any impact with insecurity of lives and property. No matter how charitable one may wish to be, the present situation in our country finds itself today leaves much to be desired. The PRP commits to the establishment of a new security system anchored on the principles of defense by and for all citizens. Currently, the Nigerian police force has a strength of about 370,000, catering for a population of over 200 million. The police are presently constituted incapable of effectively discharging its responsibility of safeguarding lives and property of citizens. There is therefore an urgent need for a structural decentralization of policing functions in the country and structured civil society participation in the task of the maintenance of law and order. The PRP manifesto shall initiate the following: community policing. We would like to introduce community policing as a panel for the problem of insecurity, bedeviling every sector of the society. A community security committee, as we call it, shall be set up at district levels, which shall be chaired by the district head, senior traditional leaders in the district, with the local religious leaders, the DPO, and the police division, and elected representatives of the youth, women, commercial organizations of the districts as members. They shall be responsible for intelligence gathering and the establishment of supervision of the activities of residential vigilante groups within the district local government councils. The government councils shall be encouraged to be responsible for the provisions of specific allowances to the members of the vigilante groups in the areas of jurisdiction. Inclusiveness. As a young man, while doing my national service corps in Zaria in 1985, I accompanied His Royal Highness, the late Emir Zao, during his tours of the then Emirate, the Zaria Emirate. These tours were essentially used for civil arbitration and dispute resolution. This is because most of the conflicts that erupt in society often lead to violence and destruction of lives and property, are majorly caused by perception, real and imagined, or injustice, discrimination, or lack of inclusiveness on the part of the public functionaries. Our party, the PRP, shall ensure that the establishment of the Office of Civil Arbitration and Alternative Dispute Resolution, with a mandate to amicably settle or otherwise resolve petitions and disagreements without resort to violence or costly or bitter judicial proceedings. You may have noticed that I have clearly stayed away from the establishment of the state police and the issue of allowing citizens to carry to bear arms. This is a deliberate position with anybody who has the knowledge of what happened when we had the native authority and regional police know the extent of the abuse and systematic oppression that political opponents suffered at that time. The economy. You have inquired about our plans on the rebuilding of the economy of the North and what are the priorities of the revitalization of the Northern economy. Agriculture has maintained the backbone of the Nigerian economy, contributing nothing less than 40% of the nation's GDP and 70% of the nation's employment. Nigeria has a huge potential of agricultural development because of this large population of 200 million that constitute a huge market for agricultural products. Nigeria has a land mass of 92.4 million hectares, of which 80% are arable, and an abundant rainfall of between 100 milligram in the extreme north to about 4,000 in the rainforest. However, the potential of agriculture as a strategic sector to grow the economy, create wealth and employment, provide food security and reduce poverty in the nation has been wiped away by the twin troubles of the economic agenda foisted upon us by the successive civilian administrations and the insecurity in the last decade. Some of these policies led to the following: abolishing of the marketing boards without provision for alternatives, removal of subsidy of price support mechanisms that the present farmers enjoy, the abandonment of agri extension services at local levels, the abandonment of cooperative societies as in a nation such as ours, where farm holding are small and in diverse areas. In order to revitalize the agricultural potential of this nation, our party has voted, one voted shall ensure the following: encourage the re-establishment of cooperative, and I repeat, cooperative marketing and community run boards, so as to guarantee minimum price for selected agricultural products. Bring before the National Assembly basic agri bills governing agriculture to guarantee the direct subsidies going to farmers and agro-allied producers, as well as indirect subsidies to cover transparently administered tax subsidies, production subsidies, export grants, and the provision of warehouse facilities. This eventually will end up in the road to creating a commodities exchange. Yield improvement to make Nigerian farmers competitive with their counterparts in the rest of Africa. The revival of the cooperative society at the over 7,000 wards in the Federation, making credit available to the actual farmers, both of peasant status, large and medium scale, and not the scam that happened with the Anko program. Certification of peasant land holdings, which can assist peasant farmers towards accessing credit facilities. This is very important to our program in PRP. There will be a need to review the land use to make this very effective. The bulk of the North is agrarian, and therefore any reform in the agricultural sector shall bring abundant benefits to its people. To my view, it should, however, be noted that the success of any program, no matter how laudable it may be, is anchored on the provision of security, like I said earlier on, and dealing with the issues of corruption and good governance. It is to be noted that presently a very significant proportion of the vast resources that have been accrued to government at all levels are being wasted on inefficient